A major fantasy sequel is officially revving up its engines while an A-list director's new film is making headlines for the wildest marketing stunt ever. Plus, we take a look at a new initiative connecting creative industries across continents. We'll be delving into all these stories and more right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions, both from the African front and the international scene. And in today's episode, we'll be covering the story of the official, greenlit of the film, the sequel to the live action sequel to the How to Train Your Dragon 2, starting production actually quite soon. And I'm talking about next month, and also be taking a look at the wildest marketing stunt ever, and this has to do with the film Bugonia, where, the admission fee, so to speak, for entering, for being part of the early screening, advanced screening for the film Begonia has to do with shaving your head. Well, will you do that? We'll be taking a look at that story as well. And last but not the least, we'll also be taking a look at the African Exchange Summit that happened in Cologne just this past week. So we'll be delving into all these stories right here on the Film Mandate. So starting with the very first story, I'm sad to bring you another sad news on this particular note. Well, if you have ever watched the Never Ending Story, unfortunately, the composer for that film has passed on at the age of 89, and it's indeed sad to hear. And his name, actually, he is a German composer who dabbles in jazz and classical orchestra, and actually, created one of the number one TV series, scored for the number one TV series in Germany at the time called Tatort. Tatort. I don't know whether I'm mentioning the production right, but his name is Doldinger. Klaus Doldinger, who happens to be a German saxophonist and the composer who created soundtracks to Wolfgang Petersen Das Boot and the Neverending Story. And I brought this up. I mean, I don't know him personally, I'll be honest. I mean, not personally, but I didn't even have knowledge of him. But the Neverending Story is one of the films, fantasy film that I watched growing up, and it touched me so much, particularly when the young boy who is the protagonist, or the who the story is based on, a horse died in that sinking sand or the mud, and that made me cry as a kid growing up. And to hear that the composer of that film has passed on is actually quite. I mean, it's sad. It's life though, but indeed, it's one film that I can attest to made great impact on me. Even though I must admit I forgot it for so many years, but whenever I hear that title, that story, it brings me back to that, I don't know, cathartic experience I had seeing a young boy that I can relate to in terms of age losing, something that he loved so much, and he felt all alone in the world after that death. And that film itself was quite an experience that I can never. I mean, it's difficult to even put in words, because I mean it was so long ago since I watched it, but I can never forget that experience and that particular scene, regardless of how time has passed. And therefore, it is sad to see that Klaus Doldinger, who happened to be the composer for the film, has passed on at the age of 89. My condolences to all his loved ones, family, and those who were impacted by his works, and may his soul rest in perfect peace. So we move on to the first story of today. And one of the exciting things that have been developing for the past decade or two is how a lot of studios are recapturing the animated films that we loved so much into live action renditions of it. And Disney led the trail with regards to adapting most of their animated movies into live action. Well, not too long ago, in 2025, Universal also followed suit by adapting its animated film How to Train Your Dragon into a live action adaptation, and actually did made quite an impact in terms of box office revenue. And it's quite interesting to see that they are following suit with this particular, actually a sequel. And this actually happens to be good news, seeing that they've been performing well at the box office, and that indeed would cause every studio to want to actually make a sequel to the particular story. And this actually can be captured in the Hollywood Reporter. And I'd like us to take a brief read as to the article published in there. So this is what, sorry, pardon me, I brought in the wrong article. Pardon me for that. So actually it's captured in the movie, on the movie web website, and this is what it says: that live action adaptation of beloved fantasy movie gets the sequel updates fans want to hear. And then your short is the character Stoic portrayed by Gerard Butler, portrayed by Gerard Butler. And this is what the article says: that the 2025 version of How to Train Your Dragon was a refreshing take on the beloved series, shifting the animation format for a live action hybrid that still captured the spirit of the 2010 original film. After the box office numbers proved that the franchise still had life in the new format, Universal Pictures quickly approved a sequel. Most details about How to Train Your Dragon 2 remain under wraps, but star Mason Thames has recently shared news that the follow-up to his 2025 hit will soon start production. We'll begin our journey back to Beck in no time. And this is what he had to say: that I go out to start November 1, the actor said to the Direct, when sharing the production details of How to Train Your Dragon 2. Thames is currently promoting his return in the horror sequel Black Phone 2, which is currently playing in theaters in theaters. In How to Train Your Dragon 2, the actor will reprise his role as Hiccup, the young aspiring dragon slayer who befriends the creature Toothless and eventually becomes a central figure in his village's battle against a much more powerful monster. Thames said, I'm very, very excited very excited. That character means the world to me. So the fact that I get to go back and do it again and get back on the saddle is really cool. And I've seen a lot of concepts, and there's a lot of cool people joining the team, and I'm super happy. So this is what Mason Thames had to say with regards to the next adaptation. I mean, the next in the sequel for the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. And listen, the How to Train Your Dragon franchise is such a beloved fantasy, and it actually shows in the numbers, even though the rating for this particular one is comparatively lower than that of the the trilogy that preceded it in terms of the animated films. But the box office actually speaks differently than the previous installations. So just to run down through how successful this particular one is, it made $623 million at the box office, one of the most successful animated films of this year in particular. And if you are to compare it to the previous ones that were released in the 2010s, you have the first one, How to Train Your Dragon, making $495 million. And then the second one, How to Train Your Dragon 2, that is the animated film, actually made, which was released in 2014, also made $621 million, very close to the live action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon. And then the 2019 actually made $521 million. So that shows how much vested interest both those who lived through the era of the animated films and the young ones have come to express their, their love for this particular film. So it is quite interesting to see. However, the rating tomatoes for, or the rating, the critic rating for this particular production was at actually 70% compared to the animated versions that made somewhere 90s, all of them were in the 90% bracket. So it is quite interesting to see that even though the box office receipts of this film has shot up compared to all of the other trilogy, the invested critic interest has sort of dropped, and that is quite interesting to see. I think it is potentially because it's literally just a rendition of the animated film onto the live action screen, even though there are some, some small differences in terms of the storytelling. But regardless, it looks like the audiences are interested in this, and definitely it would lead to a sequel being made. And fortunately for fans, I mean diehard fans of this property, it is going to have a sequel starting shooting in November 2025. And so we're talking about 1st November production starts, and that is quite exciting to see. And they are doing this production for a potential for the release date scheduled for June 11, 2027. So you're looking about somewhere a little under 2 years. So it is actually a perfect timing for this property to get into production to make sure it is ready for the 2027 release date. And that is quite interesting. And Thames, obviously you're going to have all these characters reprising their roles and much more, because in this particular sequel, we're going to have also the mother of a Hiccup, being in the sequel as well, just as we saw in the, animated film sequel. So definitely there'll be some additions of some characters as well. And obviously, we're going to have the director also returning as well, Dean DeBlois also returning, who happened to, helm the first one. And not only that, but also was the one who directed the trilogy of animation films. And also, he is the one writing these stories as well. So the integrity of the consistency of the stories actually will be felt throughout this particular production. And that is quite exciting, I'm sure, in particular for the film fans, the die-hard film-loving fans of the animated series. So that will be quite interesting to see. So up to date, actually, the first live action has made 635 million, and if it's anything to go by, if you're going to go by the trajectory of how the animated films perform in terms of the first one making 495 million, and then the second one making 621 million, it is very likely that the live action sequel to How to Train Your Dragon 2 is likely to also, move up in terms of its box office receipts. But well, that is quite interesting to note. But it is indeed a good time to actually move forward to a scene that is done well at the box office for Universal. And all the casts are quite enthusiastic to return for this particular sequel. And it looks like Mason Thames is actually very excited for this sequel because he's seen some concepts developed to the sequel. A lot of the matte painting and the background sketches and concepts have been done already. So it is interesting for him to have even gone ahead to say that there's a lot of cool people that will be joining this team. So that will be quite interesting to see. So the sequel will adapt the 2014 animated film, obviously, just as the first one adapted the 2010 animated film as well. So obviously they would not be deviating at all from the very concept of what made this particular film quite popular, from the animated films now to the live action film as well. So definitely deviating from it will not be something they'll be doing. They'll be sticking to it. Definitely they will have some few changes made to it to suit the live action adaptation so that it feels more authentic to the medium itself, rather than just lifting what is in the animated film and splashing it on screen as a film. So obviously that would be interesting to see. So let me know what you think with regards to this particular production. Are you excited about this particular faithful adaptation for How to Train Your Dragon 2? Or are you surprised? Would you be surprised by any creative changes that we made to this particular one, as perhaps you might have also noticed in How to Train Your Dragon live action 1? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. And yeah, in the comment section below. So we'll be moving on from the very first film and now to one of the mind-blowing wildest marketing stunts ever made. There are so many films that comes along in a lifetime and they come up with interesting promotional marketing stunts. I mean, you have films like Smile, where people were positioned in the stance of, certain American, pastime, games like baseball and others. And they are strategically positioned at a place where the cameras can capture them and all you see them is having some kind of weird smile on their faces. Two other very interesting, the creator, that is the film that starred David John Washington, had their marketing stance where people were dressed like AI robots versions of some of the characters in the film at certain events, and they were just walking around. So there's been quite some interesting, marketing stunts, but none. I mean, all this actually seems to pale in comparison to what this particular film, Bugonia, has in place, and that is quite interesting. And what they have in mind is that for you to actually watch the advanced screening before the 25th October, worldwide premiere, you would have to come with a bald head, or if you come with a full lock of hair, it has to be shaved off before you can get admission into a free admission, of course, but actually being paid with you shaving your hair into the cinemas. And that is quite interesting to see. So let's take a quick look at the article that captures this story, and that can be found in the Hollywood Reporter. And this is what it has to say, that Emma Stone's Bugonia holds screening in LA where audiences must shave their heads to attend. And this screening actually happened just this past Monday, or they can already be bald. And this is what it says, that half hair, no entry. For Yorgos Lanthimos' upcoming film Bugonia, a special screening is being held in Los Angeles on Monday, where attendees must be either bald or shave their heads to watch it. The moviegoers who participate will match Emma Stone's bald-headed character in the film. And Do LA's Instagram posted the requirements with a caption that reads in part, have a, let me just go straight to so this is the Instagram post that Do LA did share, and this is what it has to say. Are you bald or willing to shave your head? On Monday, 10/20, head to the Culver Theatre for a free advanced screening of Bugonia film. The new focus features Fever Dream from Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. Have a barber will be on site starting at 6 p.m. to shave it all off. Screening starts at 8 p.m. This is real. And yes, part of it will be filmed. Reservations at our link in bio. First come, first served. Tickets do not guarantee entry. 18 plus only. And that, I must say, this is quite one of the wildest marketing stunts I've ever heard of. You often hear of films, adapting quite interesting marketing stunts from 3D billboards to, like Spider-Man hanging on the side of a big Spider-Man balloon hanging on the side of a skyscraper, to so many other wild, marketing campaigns, but none. None compares. In my view, in my purview, this is the wildest I've ever seen, and it's quite interesting. It's unfortunate that I don't have the outcome as to whether this actually happened the way it was meant to have been done. So I think we'll be looking forward to see exactly how whether they were able to pull it off or it didn't work at all. But obviously, it is, in this day and age, there seems to be a different strategy, a different approach to even watching films in the cinema. One of the things that I think differentiated the view or the viewing experience in the cinema is how they held an exclusive screen for the long walk, where you had people watching the film whilst they were on a treadmill, sort of mimicking the characters in the film, and it's quite strange. I don't know whether that is the norm nowadays, where perhaps audiences seems to like this particular kind of experience, and it seems to be working one way or the other. So it looks like a lot of studios are adapting, very interesting, incentivized marketing to get people invested and interested in films nowadays by adapting quite some for the era gone by, it would be quite an odd, marketing strategy to embark on. But it seems that that is working nowadays, and that is what most studios are embarking on to get people to attend their screenings, and that is quite exciting to see. So I'm quite interested. I want to know exactly how it turned out, whether the theaters was fully packed and people came to shave their hair. But I believe that perhaps there may be a double side to it as well, because you had Emma Thomas express how joyful she was, or shaving the head, but at the same time it made her cry, because what made her cry was the fact that her mom actually also, went in for a treatment of breast cancer and also lost all her hair. And she expressed how brave her mom was compared to what she has to do because of just me working on a project. But honestly, I must say it is quite a brave deal to shave your hair for a production. But obviously, it's for work, so I can understand. And it is indeed an interesting part. And it may seem quite gimmicky, but for all you know, it may work when finally perhaps the day comes around, on the 24th of October, the US release, and the worldwide release is actually on October 31st. We may get to see whether people may come in still watching with their head shaved. But I think it can have a double impact, where perhaps this film can embark on having people shave their hair for charity in order to raise funds for cancer patients, particularly for women who are going through their own challenges. And even though this story has nothing to do with the women who are facing cancer, the story has to do with um, people who perceive that Emma Stone's character is an alien, and therefore they shaved her head. And it's entirely different from a real life, cancer patient. But it could be a good marketing stunt for the film itself. But I also believe that, I don't know, maybe it's something they have not thought of, or maybe that's what they also have in mind. But it could be an interesting aspect to embark on, should they want to choose of making, using it to raise funds for cancer survivors. And I think that would be quite a wonderful thing to do, to be able to use a film for a good cause such as that. So I'm quite interested. So, just as, it's quite interesting to have this stance being made to pay a homage to a key plot point for, Emma Stone's character. And that is quite interesting. A CEO kidnapped by conspiracy theorists has her head shaved, and that is quite interesting. So this is interesting to see, but Yorgos Lanthimos films are quite interesting. A number of films of his that I think I did watch. Poor Things, and Poor Things is amazing. Well directed. I can assure you that, for those who haven't watched, but it is so well directed, and his films has he has a clear voice when it comes to the kind of films he does. And this is the fourth collaboration between himself and Emma Stone with regards to films they've been making. So that is quite interesting. So it will be actually releasing for the US market, it will be releasing on October 24th. And for the worldwide release, it will be on October 31st, 2025. And this absurdist black comedy indeed would be quite interesting to see on screen. And I don't know how well it's going to perform at the box office, but well, it's a story, quite a unique story on its own, especially when we live in an era where a lot of unveilings about so-called alien sightings are being in the news or on social media nowadays. So I don't know whether it was made with regards to how the times is about, but regardless, it'll be quite an interesting film to see, and how this particular one may make an impact, whether for the cause of cancer patients or for the cause of alopecia, women losing their hair. I think that would be a good cause to let this film be an advocate for these pertinent issues that borders on mankind, particularly for women. I mean, that troubles women a lot. So that would be quite interesting to see, and hopefully, I hope this film does well, and we'll be looking forward to see how it performs and what was the outcome of the marketing stunts that he tried pulling off just this past Monday. So let me know what you think. What's your take on this extreme marketing stunts like Bugonia's head shaving requirement? Is it a clever engagement or it just went too far? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave your comments in the comment section below. So now we move on from all these stories to a story or an initiative that transpired in Cologne, Germany, with regards to a new initiative being created to connect creative industries across continents. And I'm talking about the creative industries of Europe and that of Africa. And that is quite interesting to see. And this is called the Africa Exchange Summit, held in Cologne 2025. Actually, it happened just this past week. And a lot of discussions were held to discuss how among so many discussions that were on the creative industries in general, a lot also was said about the film industries and how the film industries can have access to the European market to help it thrive the way it can actually do. And I'm excited that this was held, because these are some of the things that has plagued, a number of these issues has plagued our industry so much that quality content are now being produced on the continents, as evident when seen at a lot of film festivals across the continent or the globe, around the globe. And yet most of these films only stop there, or some may get opportunity to receive one form of marketing in a territory or the other. But for the larger chunk of films produced from the African continent, rarely do you find these films making its way to the global scale. Whereas, unfortunately for us, even though our films make it to doesn't make it to most film markets around the world, we have a lot of these films from outside the country or the continent, permeating into our markets, and they take a larger chunk of the box office revenue. And I'm glad that this initiative is being taken to help bridge that particular gap. And so this article is published in the News Ghana website, and this is what it has to say: that Cologne Summit bridges African and European creative industries. It's quite a lengthy article, so I'll just cherry pick the ones that will be necessary to discuss for this particular episode. So it says that the inaugural Africa Exchange Summit wrapped up in Cologne this week, marking what organizers hope becomes a turning point for how the continent's creative powerhouses connect with global partners. Running October 15th and 16th as part of Film Festival Cologne, the conference brought African filmmakers, tech entrepreneurs, and investors face to face with Europe counterparts who suddenly realized they've been sleeping on massive opportunities. The summit opened Wednesday evening with a screening of My Father's Shadow, the semi autobiographical Nigerian drama that became the first Nigerian film selected for Cannes Film Festival's official competition. Director Akinola Davis Jr.'s feature debut follows two young brothers spending an unforgettable day in Lagos with their estranged father during the turbulent 1993 Nigerian election. The film captures both intimate family dynamics and sweeping political upheaval through a child's perspective, and the United Kingdom selected it as its Oscar entry for Best International Feature Film. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow in our the Oscar Minute segment. So that is what we'll be doing. So it's quite interesting. So there were so many discussions that went on, but let me take this couple of paragraphs which highlights more on the film industry. So it goes on to say that that screening choice carried symbolic weight. Nigeria's film industry, popularly known as Nollywood, produces more than 2,500 movies annually, making it the second largest film industry globally by output, trailing only behind India's Bollywood. Yet, despite this prolific production, African cinema has struggled for decades to secure equal footing in international markets, and this is what I've been, talking about. And major film festivals. Davis's Cannes breakthrough represents exactly the kind of validation the summit aims to amplify. Discussions throughout the 2 days zeroed in on the economics underlying Africa's creative explosion. UNESCO estimates the African film industry could employ 20 million people and generate $20 billion in revenue annually, numbers that make investors sit up straight. But reaching that potential requires solving persistent financing gaps, improving production infrastructure, and building distribution networks that extend beyond continental audiences. So this is quite interesting, an interesting discovery with regards to this particular discussion. And Africa happens to be the youngest continent with an age median of around 20 years and below. And Africa's like storytelling, whichever medium it may take. And the medium of film on the continent of Africa can potentially span over 80 years, from the Egypt film colony set up by the British and also the Ghanaian film colony set up by the British as well in the 40s, the 1940s. So film making on the continent has actually been prevalent for quite a long time. However, perhaps I don't know why the reason may be why most international territories are not favoring our films to screen in their continents. And I understand it's a business, so definitely if a film does not make money, the markets or the distributors wouldn't want to have them in their cinemas. But I feel like a lot of distributors haven't really paid that much attention to African films and just favoring other continents' films to ours. And I can understand that, but in as much as that may be the case, there are very good African films from the continent. Particularly last year and this year, a lot of African films have been at various prestigious film festivals and have made such a great impact. And one of such films is My Father's Shadow. And one other film that if you haven't watched, maybe if you're in Ghana and you want the opportunity to watch that film, it is actually The Fisherman, which I had the privilege of working on that film. And the director and writer and is Zoe Martinson, and the fisherman has been traveling the world over to several prestigious film festivals, winning several awards, both for the director herself and also for the film. So there are quite some great films from the continent of Africa, but unfortunate thing is that it looks like the opportunities given other continents and other film industries are not being extended to us, and that is quite sad. But I'm glad that this particular initiative is helping sort of or correct it one way or the other, and that is quite interesting to see. And this particular event or initiative was organized by the Rush Lake Media, which is headed by the managing director Philip Hoffman, and it is indeed a very great initiative being taken to be able to bring much needed attention to what the continent has to offer that unfortunately is missing. Is missing. The continent of Africa has several stories, and several great films, but the unfortunate thing is that it hasn't had the opportunity to, be distributed in certain markets that can potentially make such huge sums of money. So most often our films have been neglected one way or the other. But with the initiative being taken actually by the BFI, the British Film Institute, to present, or Great Britain, to present Akinola Davis' film in the as the best international feature in the Oscars is quite an interesting development. And I'm hoping that it actually gets shortlisted among the 15 films to be, nominated into the Oscars. And I'm hoping it actually gets the nod for that. And so it's quite sad, but I'm glad, better late than never, that these discussions are ongoing, and these discussions are actually trying to bring more needed attention to what Africa has to offer for the film industry globally, but has not been actually given the opportunity to. And I'm glad that we actually not waiting for the world to give us an opportunity. All over the continent, particularly from Nigeria and also from Kenya, companies are being put in place to help with global distribution or even continental distribution. You have the likes of Mo Abudu with her Ebony Life and Ebony on Stream, trying to bring African films to the continent wherever we are, and that is quite a great initiative. You also have Canal Plus, one way or the other, having acquired the multi-choice network to be able to showcase not just so more. Canal Plus is actually embarking on this initiative where they will be showcasing both Anglophone films and Francophone films across borders, where Francophone films would receive the language dubbing treatment so that those from Anglophone Africa can enjoy the films and understand it without the constant strain of watching the subtitles. Regardless, even if the subtitles are shown, we're still going to watch it anyway. But actually, I'm glad about the initiative being taken by all these people to make things happen. Even, yes, I reckon that Canal Plus is a foreign entity. But outside that, there are so many film companies, both within the production sector, financing sector, and also the distribution sector, trying to bring about initiatives all over. And that is quite exciting. But I'm also excited about what what this particular company is also embarking on to bring much needed attention to what we are already doing in Africa. So Rush Lake Media, which is actually based in Cologne, Germany, and actually Nairobi, Kenya. And so I think they've had a taste of both worlds, and they thought it best to bridge the gap by uniting both continents' creative industries, and that is exciting. And my hope is not because of the fact that Africa stands to gain $20 billion in 2030, and that is where perhaps maybe some of these companies are getting involved. Yes, obviously, even if they get involved, it will still help. But I hope that that will not be the parochial interest alone, but also help build a proper infrastructure. And when you read the article further, it does go on to say that a lot of these summits are hard, but as to whether that will translate into reality, that is something that is yet to be seen. So for this particular summit being which has been held in Cologne, I'm glad that it's been held, but my hope is that it will not be just a flash in the pan with nothing much being done to get the industry booming as it should. But I'm quite hopeful with this particular initiative that has been taken, and I'm praying that things actually move on from just conversations around the African reality and what Europe also stands to gain by collaborating with this, to actually seeing that it happens and manifest. And I like something that was said by the by Philip Hoffman. Let me see if I can pull it up. Um, yeah, let me see if I can pull it up. I've sort of missed that. But what she did say, which excited me, is the fact that he understands that, I mean, bringing Africa on board in this particular summit is not to give handouts to Africa, but actually they are seen as an equal partner in this particular initiative, but rather open the market of Europe to us to participate, just as vice versa. They already have access to our markets. And it's quite unfortunate that most of the leaders who can put in place policies to say that, listen, if you want to have access to our territory, give us access to yours. And I can understand, because maybe we may not have the leverage to make that happen, since we don't have enough infrastructure to be able to come to the table with such bargaining power. But regardless, I think the time is now to have things turn around, because Africa is the second most populous continent in the world after Asia. We number around 1.4 billion, and definitely by 2030, the number would have grown much more. And we also stand the likelihood to be the next powerhouse once the infrastructures are put in place. I believe that the $20 billion and the 20 million job creation Africa stands to create by the year 2030 may be just a drop a drop of water in the ocean. Seeing that if the structures are put in place well, we may far exceed the projections that have been made by UNESCO with regards to our film industry. So there's a lot that Africa has to offer the world. And with this summit being organized, and not just that, but if you look at the continent, there's been several events organized in the continent. Nigeria organized a summit quite recently. And then we also have the Africa Cinema Summit, which was organized in Ghana. So a lot of initiatives are happening. Even another event also was organized where you had the collaborative efforts of Nollywood and also the Nairobi Kenyan film industry coming together to think about how they can help create a collaborative network among African countries when it comes to film productions and a whole lot. So I'm happy that these conversations are not just happening out there, but it's happening on the continent. But it's also good to have the external conversations ongoing, because the world is now a global village, and to really make it on a global stage, to actually make this $20 billion will not just be from us alone, but also with regards to having access to foreign territories and making sure that our films are good enough to make it big on the box office charts. So that is an interesting development, and let me know what you think with regards to this summit being had. Why are bridges between creative industries on different continents so vital for the future of global cinema? Whatever your thoughts may be, kindly leave it in the comment section below. So all too soon, I've come to an end of the stories for this episode of the Film Mandates live stream, and I'll be coming your way again with other interesting stories as well from the world of global cinema. So thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu, and this has been the Film Mandate. I'll see you soon.